And that's the difference between hotness and beauty. Beauty is eternal. Beauty kind of drives the world. A woman, when she experiences her own beauty and she expresses that into the world, or she just finds herself finally like at peace with who she is and fully expressing herself and her confidence and her allure, she doesn't have to do anything. Like, that's enough to be desired by men and to be attractive and to be sought after, right? To attract in a way that inspires action, right? Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack here, and today I want to jump right back into talking about women. And it's actually kind of great. I had my cousin visiting this week, and actually, my other cousin, I had a cousin from Israel visiting a few weeks ago, and another cousin from LA that lives there. And he's quite a large sports fanatic, and he loves sports. I remember back in the day when he was single, he would have like four TVs in his living room. Each one like was designated a different sport to be playing, and it was just very funny. And he's been in a relationship for a while, and I was there with him and his girlfriend, and we were talking about how he was like trying to get a second TV in the living room, and she was just like, oh my God, that's not happening. And it was so funny because for me too, as a woman, I'm just like, that's insane. There's no need to have two TVs in the living room. But for him, it makes so much sense. It's so important to him. And I recognize how important sports are to him and to more men than women in general, right? Because of this notion of competition, because of this idea of like respect and just so many values and priorities that men have that women just do not have. And it really is interesting talking about sports in general. And I kind of wanted to talk about like just in general, women cannot do the same things that men can do. And men desire doing different things than women desire doing, like at a foundational level. And I just kind of want to go through that during this episode a little bit and focus in on sports and just the usefulness and the action-oriented nature of a man without ignoring his inner world too. It's like what we do so often is we'll say something or we'll find a little nugget of truth and then we'll just kind of delete and ignore everything else that also accompanies that truth. And I hate doing that. And there's so much more nuance to things, right? So, first of all, I was thinking about like advertising. And I was thinking about that slogan. Remember that slogan in the early 2000s or something, late 90s? Mia Hamm, Michael Jordan. It was based on like the song from Annie. It was like, I can do anything you can do better. I can do anything better than you. And it was just like, I just like re-listened to that because we were thinking about sports and Gatorade and Nike and all of that. We were talking about a lot of sports yesterday. And I was just like, what a ridiculous slogan. Like, as someone who's worked in advertising for a long time, it's just like, it's just a slogan. It's just like we call it romance copy, right? It's a jingle. It sounds really good, but it's just not true. It's really just like not true. Women cannot do everything that men can do, and they don't want to. And it's so interesting because it just goes right back to just the way that we advertise things in general, right? You think about like a mass-produced jam or something, right? Especially United States, like there's lots of chemicals in it, lots of food dye, lots of coloring and all this stuff, but like the slogan is like fresh from the vine or ripe from the vine. It just sounds good to say it, and it doesn't work. And it just gets people emotional and all riled up. And it's not true. It might be true for like a tiny little niche, a tiny little fraction, maybe like the jam you get at the farmer's market. It's true for that jam, but it's not true for all the other jams, you know? But the jams that have all the money to spend are the ones that are using food dye and coloring, right? And same thing with this thing about men and women, right? Men and women being the same. And it's just something I always come back to in my mind over and over again is this like insight and just way that Mary Harrington says things about liberalism versus conservatism. It's just like we need both at the table because they both check each other. But liberal thinking is like, pie in the sky, like big thinking, like big ideas, like, well, maybe this could be true, right? And conservative thinking is like, it doesn't work. Like, if it hasn't worked, like, we're not going to pursue it. Like, it has to work. And I think because over the last few decades, we've just had so much like thinking from the left and just such a push on liberalism that it's like a whole bunch of crazy ideas get put through and like they get bought into, right? When liberalism goes unchecked. And one of these, and the biggest one in my view, is that men and women are the same. And it's just actually insane. So there's this like loop of insanity that you can get into if you buy into that, right? Because if men and women are the same, talk about sports. We don't need separate sports leagues, right? We could see this play out so easily. Like, we don't need separate sports leagues. And if men and women really are equal, then like, let's just not have women's sports. Let's have everyone play sports together. We don't do that. If we did that, women would never get the opportunity to play sports. And women deserve the opportunity to play sports. Women are human, we're athletic, like, right? There's a desire to play sports, obviously. So having two separate sports leagues is actually it's care and devotion towards women. That's exactly what it is. It's providing care and devotion towards women and understanding. That's what honoring the differences between the sexes looks like. It's different sports leagues. Having different sports leagues in essence means that men and women are different. Like, that's it, right? And it's crazy. Now, double click, it's different. It's smaller because spectator sports don't matter to most women, oh, probably 98% of women, they don't matter, right? The people that are watching the most women's sports are actually men because lo and behold, the people that actually like watching sports are watching sports. And it goes back to what I was talking about with my cousin. Like, I personally could care less about watching sports, right? Maybe I enjoy watching like FIFA soccer once every 4 years because it's like the nationalism, the countries, like the storylines of the players, like all that stuff, all that like female stuff, the details of the stories. I just had a girlfriend talk about something about the British Premier League, and she did not want to talk about the score or like the competition. She was talking about individual players and their like personal stories, right? Their relationships. Lo and behold, women want to talk about relationships, right? Especially they want to talk about famous athletes and their relationships, right? So it's just so funny. Like, I'm not going to invest money in going to sports games, right? My cousin absolutely will. Like, he was just talking about how, oh man, it's going to be really expensive, the World Cup in 26, but like, he doesn't care. Like, he's going to get tickets, he's going to go anyway. He's committed to that. It's part of his identity. And it makes sense because sports are just a massive part of male culture. And there's this competition that exists there. And it's a huge part of masculine psychology that doesn't exist in feminine psychology, right? And so it's super, super, super interesting. And you ask yourself, like, what is going on there? Why, right? And I think there are a couple of things going on. I think one thing that I definitely like want to pull out from that is this idea of I was writing about this actually in an essay that I wrote. Basically, I was talking about how why men love the Roman Empire, right? And you could say why men love sports and like why men love watching sports and being like invested in the score and like knowing all the details about the competition. And it's like there's this deep desire, and I kind of boiled it down to three things, is like to be respected and revered, right? To be triumphant in achievement and to be outlived by a legacy, right? These are foundational things that it seems like the Roman Empire definitely did. So it's like kind of like a great thing to look at for those three things, especially the way that we talk about Roman life and Roman civilization and the focus on warriorship and all of that. And those are the types of men that get the most love in society, right? Those are the men that women want to be with. Respected, triumphant, creating a legacy. Maybe he doesn't have a legacy right now, but he's like on his way. And in contrast, a woman, it might take her quite a bit of internal work to get rid of the barriers and belief systems that she holds. Maybe she thinks she's not good enough and she just has to go through this like inner um, struggle, and then she can overcome that and she can do a lot of work on herself and find peace in herself and her beauty and her effectively. I was writing about allure, right? What does allure mean? Why are some women just so alluring and some women are not? And the ones that are not might even be more physically hot, right? And that's the difference between hotness and beauty. Beauty is eternal. Beauty is something that kind of drives the world. And I was talking about this in my last episode too. There's a big conversation around like God, you know, creating beauty and beauty as like the central focal point of our lives and like what we're kind of striving towards. And this idea that a woman, when she experiences her own beauty and she expresses that into the world, or she just finds herself finally like at peace with who she is and fully expressing herself and her confidence and her allure, she doesn't have to do anything. Like that's enough, right? That's enough for her to be desired by men and to be attractive and to be like sought after, right? It's actually beautiful. The etymology of allure is it's mistaken for like physical beauty. It's not. Allure is it comes from alluring, which is like to move towards, to attract in a way that inspires action, right? To attract in a way that inspires action. That is actually what allure means, right? It's like all the great novels and all of those great historical epics where the hero is like on his hero's journey. He's acting, he's taking action, right? Because of something, because of what? It's usually because of a woman. It's because of the woman that he loves. He's making things happen. He's going through struggles and trials and tribulations because she is alluring to him in that. Her beauty is so important and eternal that he is moving towards it constantly. And so that's the distinction there in that, like I wrote here, because in contrast to an alluring woman, a man can only get the things he wants through what he does in the outside world, right? No matter how much inner work a man does, no matter how, monk-like he becomes, he really won't be satisfied until he proves himself, right? Until he proves himself externally, until he gets that respect, until he is triumphant in his own way, right? Until he kind of feels like he's well on his way towards creating a legacy. He feels super unsatisfied, right? And when he feels that dissatisfaction, like a woman feels that dissatisfaction too, right? Because it's supposed to be this loop. And so what I find to be interesting is sometimes when we say all of that, like, oh yeah, men are doers, men are the ones that want to provide and protect and all that stuff. Will say that and we'll say, oh, okay, well then we don't have to. Men don't have to worry about their emotions, and men can set their emotions aside, and they can be just like John Wayne, and it's great. And that's where we get in trouble, right? We have this like binary thinking where it's like, okay, if I'm active, then I don't have to be emotional. If I'm emotional, then I can't do anything. It doesn't work like that, right? It's all these great heroes in history have been so deeply in tune with their emotions. But like the way that we talk to men and the way that we treat men is not working, especially like in the therapeutic space, right? So there's a really important stat that I think is very important. It kind of speaks to this real difference between men and women and how foundationally men do have this drive to be respected and revered and be triumphant in something, right? And like actually do. And why things are so messed up now in that women have kind of superseded their innate nature, right? To be alluring, to be beautiful, to be this um, force in the world that kind of reminds men that like all is well, all is well, all is well. Like there's this like reason for doing all the things that you're doing. And then they've started doing all of the things. And so then men are just like, well, we're not here to compete with you. Like, we're not going to do that. So it makes sense why men are just kind of opting out and bowing out of spaces where they look around and they're just like, it's all women, it's all women here, right? Um, There's nothing to do it for, anymore. And it makes so much sense. So back to the stat. 90% of men that had, this is coming from Connor Beaton when he was doing some research. I took a great workshop with him last summer. 90% of men that had killed themselves had sought out therapeutic help last year. 90% of the men that had killed themselves sought out therapeutic help. 82% of those men were marked as no or low risk. Most people, and including therapists, cannot tell when a man is struggling. They brush him off. They treat him and his inner world the same way that they would treat a woman. It's different. What I've learned, this goes right back to why men love sports, why men love the Roman Empire, why men focus on action, is that women are really just looking to be seen and heard. They're really just looking to not be alone and to just be seen and heard, right? Men are looking to be useful. They want to be seen and heard too. Of course. Of course. It's human. But if being seen and heard doesn't help me move forward, why would I get seen and heard? It's like useless. That's the psychology that I've noticed. And I've heard this from men. I've experienced this. If there isn't a clear path outlining how by digging into your pain and expressing your feelings and hurt, you will find the satisfaction, the respect, the achievement, the beginning of your legacy. You will move forward in life by getting into your feelings and letting me or another therapist help you overcome your grief. Then you're not going to do it. Whereas women don't need it to women, we don't need that. We don't need to see like a clear path of how we're going to achieve by expressing our feelings. We're relationship beings in that, like Stacey Eldridge always says this, like the crown of a woman is her relationships. Like we are innately interested in relationships. Like that's it. And for men, it has to be built in a way that makes sense for men, for you guys, and for all the men that I've experienced and I've seen. And with that, it's like both and, right? You get really interested in your emotions and what they mean and regulating them and controlling them and understanding them while moving forward, while understanding that those are the things that are going to unlock a lot of positive forward movement for you, right? Super, super important. This weird, dumb narrative that came about, you know, in the 20th century, right? That like if you let yourself get into your emotions, then everything will fall apart and you won't be able to achieve, you won't be able to move forward. And I have so much compassion for that. Like I understand that. There's no scenario in which men could have survived the 20th century had they been tuned into their emotions. There was too much war, there was too much difficulty, there was too much suffering. They had to just disconnect from those things so that they could, survive. And it makes so much sense. I think this is another thing that I wrote about is like speaking to, I'm going all over the place today. I love it. Speaking to the four masculine archetypes in that like the problem is not men in their warrior archetype, where within the warrior, you do have to let go of your emotions so that you can focus, right? The problem wasn't men being in their warrior. The problem was men bringing their warrior to other places in their life. They're bringing their warrior home to their wives, to their kids. They're bringing that disconnection to their relationship to where the woman feels super alone, even though she's standing in the same room as you, right? And so I was writing about how like the warrior is what attracts a woman, but the lover, the magician, and the king archetypes, those other three are what make her stay, right? And men, you guys are so good at compartmentalizing things anyway. So there's just like a little extra there's an opportunity for just like a little bit of extra understanding on how to create that transition time between being in warrior mode and being in lover mode. And they're different. And so I think just like in the 20th century, men were for such a long time just in warrior mode always. And that was really, I think, hard for women and hard for children. And here we are now, right? so many actions and steps have been taken that were not right. um, like in retrospect, so many things should have been different in the 60s and 70s, obviously, right? Obviously, but we are where we are. So ultimately, it matters deeply for men to feel useful. And, even recently, there was this conversation, the masculinity crisis debate with Scott Galloway on the Diary of a CEO. And like he was talking about he even went on The View. It's like the first time masculinity has been talked about in this like mainstream space. He talked about like the three P's and how, no matter what, a man, you need to learn how to provide, protect, and procreate. And even if that means that you are in a relationship, providing also means recognizing when your wife, your partner is better at the money thing than you are and just kind of sitting back and letting her do that. What else are you providing for? It's a valid conversation to have. I think I wish that for so many centuries that men's worth wasn't tied to a paycheck. And we made it this way here. And it's sad and unfortunate. Um, I think that could work if, especially if she is coming at her career from a place of passion and excitement. But when she's not, then I imagine there will be a lot of resentment, right? Because I think that what's becoming very true and becoming very obvious is that like there is this confusion about women working and women working on the things that they want to create and they want to be passionate about and they want to express into the world. The women that are doing the second one are women that are happy and excited. And the women that are doing that inside of a container of a man who's giving them the space to do that, those are the happiest couples, right? So it's like every woman has this like beauty to unveil. Like maybe for one woman it's her 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 cooking, maybe for another woman it's her creativity, maybe for another woman it's her nerdy side where she's a researcher, maybe for another woman it's something else. And of course there are women that are interested in STEM and law and all of these other things. And I'm certain that if that's true for them and this is something they're really passionate about, it's going to go great. But it's when women are just trying to prove themselves that they can be better than men, that's when it all goes to shit. And it's not good. And so in that dynamic that Scott Galloway was talking about, that might be okay if she's really passionate about what she's doing. And then ultimately, when it comes to motherhood, that takes first place, that takes first place. And I think it's an important conversation to have. And it's really important to just understand these like very clear differences. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And until the next one, y'all. Hello, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy to be here bringing my wisdom, my truths, all the research I do into pop culture and evolutionary psych and beyond to bring men and women the information that we all need to know to find that ultimate harmony with each other. This is the mission. This is why I'm here. This is what I believe in. So if you found value in what I'm doing here, please help me grow the podcast. And you can do one of two things. Either share the episode with a friend or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple. This will help me so much. Until next time.